Hello Shiny viewers, I'm DS, your psychologist, and welcome to another episode on channel NITT. In this episode, we're going to take a look at all the 4 rationals. These are the NT types, and we're going to evaluate how they actually process information. Hopefully, this episode can help you to understand the NT types better in terms of how they process information and come to a conclusion. So all the 4 rational types prefer to use intuition and thinking to process information. So how do the 4 types differ? To make things simple, we are going to only consider how these 4 types evaluate a situation or assess a person. Let's start with the ENTJ. This is the easiest because I am an ENTJ myself. First, when we need to evaluate a person, it could be a stranger or somebody that we know, or when we try to evaluate a situation, whether it's a good situation or bad situation, what happens is, for the ENTJ, there is an immediate output. When we think about the situation, immediately we know whether it's good or bad, whether the person is considerate, negative, positive. There is an immediate judgment, so to speak. So we call this the output. The output is immediate. However, as soon as the output is churned, we can also possibly come up with other possibilities. Maybe the person is late. She's not responsible, but maybe she has lost her phone. So these are all different possibilities. The ENTJ will then consider how likely each of these minor fringe possibilities are. So if something is important to us, we may even re-evaluate the situation. Maybe she really lost her handphone because she has not even responded 5 hours later. So an ENTJ prefers to have a direct output, and then we evaluate the situation again. If that situation is important to us, sometime later we may have a re-evaluation and have another output. So usually the first output is the same as the second output, but it may not be. So very long ago, in one of my previous episodes, I talked about wanting to buy a watch. I actually started off thinking that I want to buy a Cartier or a Rolex, but in the end I bought another brand. So in that sense, the ENTJ is open, but I wouldn't say that the ENTJ is very open-minded, because the ENTJ tends to be judgmental. So to conclude, in very simple terms, for the ENTJ, output, consideration of other factors, output. For the INTJ, it is inverted. They start off by evaluating all the different possibilities in their head before they come to an output. So an INTJ is very likely to figure out concurrently all the factors that are contributing to the problem or that needs to be considered when evaluating a person. In this sense, the INTJ is more open-minded than the ENTJ. So I would say that for the INTJ, the sequence will be complex analysis of the situation, then output. The process that goes through the mind of the INTJ is very complicated and intricate. So similar to the ENTJ, the INTP, when evaluating a situation or assessing a person, they will also come to an output first. So the output is a judgment. Whether the person is positive, negative, whether they like it or they don't like it. They have the tendency to continue with the assumption that their output is true until further proven wrong. And it is very difficult to prove them wrong because they will find counter arguments to support their original assumption or their original output. So for that matter, I think the INTPs can serve as very good criminal lawyers, especially those defending the guilty. Interestingly, INTPs, they want to believe that they are very open-minded, but they are actually not. I would rank them as the least open-minded out of the 4 rationals. Now let's come to the most difficult rational to actually break down, and that is the ENTP. The ENTP uses NE as their dominant function, and it's very difficult to pinpoint what the ENTP is going to conclude because NE is their dominant function. Here, ENTPs like to look at things in abstraction. They like to look at the broad picture. They are very interested in the mental thinking itself, like, okay, if A is true, then B is not true, but is there a counter argument to that? So there can be a lot of weird things going on in the ENTP's head. So if I have an analogy for the ENTP, right, one of the things that I can think of is when you go to an arcade or you go to a circus fun fair, there's this game called ring toss. So in the game of ring toss, you buy a few rings and you try to toss it, and if it lands on the mouth of the bottle, like straight in, then you get a prize. So imagine an ENTP when they have a thought process, right? It's almost as if they bought a whole bucket of rings and they just toss them out at the same time and see where it lands. So it is a little bit haphazard. There's no regular pattern to the way in which an ENTP processes information. Sometimes it's so haphazard that when you talk to an ENTP, it's unpredictable. At other times, they can really be very argumentative. At other times, when you tell them something, they are very willing to accept it as it is. In any case, they are very unlikely to really want further details. They just need to know, okay, this is fine, or yeah, this is good, that is bad, and that is usually good enough for them. Well, on a personal note, I am doing this video because when I am actually reading online sources, I find that the way the internet sources are giving information on how the rationals think as very superficial and somewhat wrong. So I want to do some form of a correction. So I personally do not think that I'm very expert in this area. So viewers, if you have any input to add, do feel free to add into the comment sections. Okay, at Channel NITT we produce a lot of MBTI videos such as this one. If you've enjoyed this video, do give us a like. If you have not already subscribed, do consider subscribing so that we can bring you more MBTI and fun stuff. Okay, I'm going to sign off now and I'll see you in our next episode. Bye bye.